You ever trust someone so much that you don't even question their little lies? That was my mistake. She thought she was clever, sneaking around, spinning stories like I was blind, but she didn't know one thing. I was already 3 steps ahead. And I exposed her where it hurt the most, in front of the neighbor's wife. If you've ever been betrayed, hit that like button, and if you believe in karma, subscribe. Because this story, it's about how lies crumble in the sunlight. I used to think my street was the kind of place where nothing bad ever happened. You know, the kind where the air smells like blooming jasmine in the evenings, where neighbors wave without looking at their phones, and where porch lights feel warmer than the sun itself. I'd sit on the steps with a cup of coffee and watch kids race their bikes down the cul-de-sac, convinced I was living inside a quiet, perfect bubble. My house sat right in the middle, next to Morel and her husband, and across from the couple who always hosted weekend potlucks. It felt safe. It felt untouchable. Back then, if anyone asked, I would have said my life was steady, predictable in the best way. Leora and I had been married for 6 years. Though we had our share of arguments, I believed no. I trusted that what we had was real. She was the kind of woman who could walk into a room and light it up without saying a word. At least that's how I saw her. I used to think her late-night reading habits were adorable, her quiet smiles comforting. I was blind in the softest way possible, the kind that doesn't see cracks forming because it's too busy admiring the paint on the walls. I remember the first time I felt something shift. It wasn't loud. It didn't crash into me. It was a whisper, a faint silence that didn't belong. We were standing in the kitchen, and she laughed at something on her phone. But it wasn't the kind of laugh I knew. It was sharp, hushed, like it didn't belong to me anymore. She slipped the phone into her pocket so casually that if I hadn't been looking, I would have missed it. That moment passed quickly, but something in me caught it, like the way your heart catches a faint, unfamiliar scent. I told myself not to overthink. That's what trust does. It teaches you to silence your own instincts. So I silenced mine, but the silence grew louder. She started coming home a little later each week, always with the same explanation: yoga with the girls. It sounded harmless, ordinary, even healthy. And maybe if it had come from anyone else, I might have believed it without a second thought. But it came from her, and beneath the sweetness of her voice, there was a tremor she didn't know I could hear. I didn't say a word. I smiled. I nodded. I pretended to believe. That's the thing about betrayal. It doesn't arrive like a storm. It seeps in like water under a door, slowly, patiently, until everything you thought was solid starts to soften. But at that time, I was still that man who believed in our little world, the one who trusted the glow of porch lights, the one who thought love was stronger than suspicion, the one who had no idea that my perfect neighborhood was about to become the stage for the ugliest truth I'd ever face. And I had no clue. The people living just one fence away would become part of the storm she created. The first real crack didn't come with shouting or slammed doors. It came on an ordinary Tuesday night. I'd just come back from a late meeting, the kind that leaves your head buzzing with numbers and half-finished conversations. The house was quiet, too quiet. Usually, Leora would have music playing softly or be curled up on the couch watching some drama. But that night, I could hear only the soft hum of the fridge. As I stepped into the hallway, I caught a low voice. Hers. She was on the phone. Not in the living room, not in the kitchen, but standing by the back door, half hidden in the shadow. Her tone was different, softer, almost sweet in a way she hadn't sounded with me in a long time. I froze. It wasn't the words I caught, just the rhythm of her laugh, like the kind she used to reserve for me. That sound punched through my chest like a needle. When she realized I was home, her voice vanished mid-sentence. She tucked her phone behind her like a guilty teenager and flashed me a quick smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Oh, hey, I was just talking to Nalia about this new yoga class," she said, as if rehearsed. And just like that, she brushed past me to the kitchen, pretending nothing happened. Most people think betrayal hits like a truck. It doesn't. It's quieter than that. It's the moment you start questioning whether your gut is telling the truth or just inventing stories. I stood there for a few seconds, letting her words sink in. She'd never hidden her phone before. never used that tone. But I swallowed it. I told myself not to become the paranoid husband. That's how trust dies, right? When you stop giving it room to breathe. But that night I couldn't shake it off. The way her shoulders tensed when I walked in. The way her smile felt borrowed. I lay awake, listening to the faint vibration of her phone lighting up on the nightstand while she pretended to be asleep. My hands itched to pick it up. But I didn't. Not yet. Because something in me whispered, this wasn't a single moment. This was the beginning of a story she didn't know I'd already started to read, and it was only the first page. Morel had always been the kind of neighbor everyone trusted. Sharp-witted, warm-hearted, and the unofficial gatekeeper of our quiet street. If a package went missing, she found it. If someone forgot their keys, she had the spare. She wasn't just my neighbor. She was like the anchor that held the entire lane together. And ironically, it was her calm voice that shook the illusion I was clinging to. One late afternoon, I was standing by my mailbox when Morel walked over with that knowing smile she always carried. She handed me a letter that had landed in her box by mistake, but before walking away, she paused. "Callan," she said gently, tilting her head, "Leora's been parking in our driveway lately. Everything all right?" That question hit harder than it should have. Parking in their driveway? Leora never mentioned anything like that. My mind scrambled for some logical reason, but none came. I forced a laugh and shrugged it off, pretending I wasn't already spinning inside. "Probably just a mix-up," I said. But Morel's eyes lingered on mine, the kind of look people give when they already know something's off. Later that night, I replayed that moment over and over again. Parking in their driveway. Why? Morel's house sat at the far corner of the street, close to the back lane, a perfect blind spot. My chest tightened. All those late yoga nights, the secret calls, the stiff smiles, they started to connect like puzzle pieces I never wanted to solve. The next few days, I found myself watching more closely, not like a jealous man, but like someone finally peeling back a curtain. I noticed small things I'd ignored before. The way Leora's perfume lingered longer than usual. The way she avoided locking eyes when I asked simple questions. The way her stories started sounding like scripts, memorized down to the breath. And every time she smiled, I started hearing the quiet echo of Morel's voice in the back of my head. Parking in our driveway, that single detail was the key that unlocked something inside me. Not rage, not yet. Just the quiet, piercing certainty that the woman I trusted was moving through shadows I hadn't dared to look at. She thought she was clever, but she had no idea. She'd left her first footprint right next door. Once you start paying attention, even the smallest lie begins to sound like a thunderclap. Every yoga night, every soft laugh, every casual brush of her hand against mine started to feel rehearsed. It wasn't obvious at first. Leora had a way of making ordinary excuses sound elegant. But after Morel's words got stuck in my head, I started listening differently. Thursday night, she came home late again. Hair pulled back loosely, clothes changed, cheeks flushed. She smelled of expensive cologne, not hers. She set down her bag on the counter like she'd done 100 times before. But something about the way she avoided my eyes twisted my stomach. "You look tired," I said casually. She smiled too quickly. "Yoga was intense tonight," I nodded, but this time I didn't let the silence swallow the truth. "Where's the mat?" "Just a small question," a test. Her face froze for a fraction of a second, so fast anyone else might have missed it. "I left it at the studio," she said. Her tone was smooth, but I'd been married to her long enough to hear the invisible tremor underneath. And right then, I knew. Over the next week, I stopped being the trusting husband. I became quiet, watchful. She didn't even notice. She was too busy weaving her story tighter, not realizing I'd started unraveling it from the edges. I checked her text patterns, the way she changed clothes before stepping out. The short bursts of nervous laughter when she thought I wasn't looking. One night I followed her. She didn't see me. She never thought I'd doubt her enough to do that. Her car slowed near Morel's house. She parked exactly where Morel had said. My heart pounded against my ribs, a sound so loud it felt like the night itself could hear it. Leora stepped out, adjusted her hair, and slipped through the narrow side gate. I didn't need to see more. The faint light at the back of the house, the silhouette waiting for her. The way she leaned in like she belonged there, it said everything words couldn't. Walking back to my car, I felt two things at once, rage burning like acid, and a cold, focused clarity. She thought I was blind, but now I was wide awake, and I was done being the fool in her story. I didn't explode that night. I didn't storm into the shadows and drag her out. I just sat in my car with my hands clenched on the steering wheel, breathing in silence that felt heavier than any scream. Anger was there, sharp and alive, but underneath it was something colder. A quiet clarity I'd never felt before. I knew that if I let rage lead, she'd twist the story and make me the villain. But if I stayed patient, I could make the truth speak for itself. The next morning, she made coffee like nothing happened. She kissed me on the cheek like a wife who had nothing to hide. I stared at her, really stared at the way she hummed a tune under her breath, the way her hair still smelled faintly of someone else's cologne. And in that moment, I decided something simple. I wouldn't just catch her. I'd expose her. So I became quiet, controlled. She mistook it for weakness, but it was strategy. I started collecting the things she didn't think I noticed. Screenshots of her text previews lighting up at midnight. A tiny recording device near the back door where she liked to whisper on the phone. Even the mileage on her car. Every detail was a thread, and I was pulling them one by one. She didn't change her pattern. Why would she? When a liar thinks they're smarter than you, they grow careless. The late-night yoga, the secret smiles at her phone, the hurried showers, everything kept repeating like a rehearsed play. Only now, I wasn't a husband on stage. I was the man sitting in the audience watching her script fall apart. The hardest part wasn't gathering proof. It was pretending not to know. Pretending to laugh at her small talk. Pretending I still trusted her. I'd lie awake at night beside her, listening to her steady breathing. I'd wonder how someone could sleep so peacefully while building a castle of lies. But I stayed still. Because storms aren't loud when they're gathering. They're silent, steady, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. And when my storm would break, she wouldn't see it coming. Not from me. Not like this. The thing about revenge is, it tastes better when it's quiet. I didn't need to shout. I didn't need to break anything. I just needed to wait and let her own lies do the work. By the time a week passed, my collection of proof was no longer just suspicion. It was a rope. And she was already wrapping it around herself without even realizing. Morel was the only person who knew what I'd seen. One evening, I knocked on her door, the weight of everything pressing against my chest. She opened with that calm, steady look she always had. But when I told her what I'd witnessed, her husband, my wife, the betrayal sitting just outside her home, something in her face cracked. Not dramatically. Just a quiet shift, like glass giving way. She didn't scream. She didn't deny. She just nodded slowly and whispered, I knew something was off. We sat at her dining table that night like two people standing on opposite ends of the same broken bridge. Betrayal has a strange way of binding strangers together. She showed me messages she had found but ignored. Subtle changes she noticed in her husband. I shared what I'd recorded. It all aligned perfectly. Our pain was different, but the truth we held was the same. That's when the idea formed. Not out of anger, but precision. If they could lie so comfortably in the dark, then the light would be their punishment. We decided to expose them, where their fake smiles couldn't save them, in front of the very neighbors they fooled. Morel suggested the weekend BBQ she and her husband were hosting. Every neighbor was invited. The stage was already set. We just had to let them walk right into it. The rest of the week, I played my part like an actor in my own story. I laughed at dinner. I asked about her classes and let her believe she'd won. Every time she smiled, I thought of the moment her mask would crack. I didn't need to chase the truth anymore. I had it in my hands. And soon, so would everyone else. The day of the BBQ arrived like a calm before a storm. The whole neighborhood buzzed with chatter, kids running around with balloons, the smell of grilled meat hanging in the air, and the kind of easy laughter that only happens when no one suspects anything. But underneath that warm, perfect afternoon, my pulse was steady and cold. I wasn't nervous. I wasn't scared. I was ready. Leora showed up dressed like she was stepping into a magazine spread, glowing, smiling, charming everyone. She kissed my cheek in front of everyone, and the neighbors smiled like they were watching a love story. If only they knew. Morel's husband hovered around her too, laughing a little too loudly at her jokes, his hand brushing hers like it was casual. I watched them with the calm patience of someone holding the final move in a game they thought they were winning. Morel and I exchanged a look, quiet, sharp, understood. She walked over to the speaker system near the patio and gave me the smallest nod. That was the signal. I stepped forward, glass in hand, smiling like a man with no storm inside him. "Hey everyone," I began lightly, my voice cutting through the chatter. "I actually have something to share tonight." Something. Honest. They turned to me, Leora, Morel's husband, the neighbors. Leora tilted her head, confused but curious, still wearing that sweet mask she'd perfected. I unlocked my phone and tapped the audio recording. The speaker crackled. Then her voice filled the air, soft, whispering, calling him by name. Talking about next time, talking like a woman in love, but not with me. The laughter around us collapsed into silence. Morel's husband froze mid-breath. And Leora? Her smile shattered like glass hitting concrete. Gasps echoed. Someone muttered her name. I scrolled through the photos next. My phone's screen lit up with their stolen moments. Hugging, laughing, hiding in the same driveway they thought no one watched. Morel didn't say a word. She walked right up to her husband and slapped him hard. The sound was so sharp, it cut through the stunned air. Leora's eyes flicked to me, pleading, but I didn't flinch. "I trusted you," I said calmly. But lies don't survive the truth. In front of the people she wanted to fool, she finally had nowhere to run. Silence can be louder than screams. That backyard, the one usually filled with the sound of clinking glasses and easy laughter, had turned into a graveyard of gasps and broken illusions. No one dared to move. Morel stood like stone, her hands still trembling from the slap. Her husband stared at the ground, face pale, shame flooding him like he'd only just realized the weight of what he'd done. And Leora? She was shaking, not because she was sorry, but because her world of carefully built lies had just collapsed in the one place she thought she was untouchable. She stepped toward me, voice cracking like a sheet of thin ice. "Callan, please, not here." Her hands reached out, trembling, trying to touch me, but I stepped back. It was a simple movement, but it said more than 100 words could. "Not here?" I repeated quietly, my voice calm, but sharper than any scream. "This is where you lied. This is where you thought no one would see you." But I saw everything. Few neighbors shifted uncomfortably. Some looked at her with pity, others with disgust. Whispers started to ripple through the crowd like wind cutting through dry leaves. Leora tried to speak again, but her words fell apart before they even reached me. All those nights of her whispering to someone else, all those fake smiles, the excuses, they were burning around her now. Morel's husband tried to say something too, maybe an apology, maybe another lie. But Morel cut him off with nothing more than a stare. She didn't need words. Betrayal had already spoken loud enough. I took a slow breath, not because I was calm, but because I was free. "You didn't just betray me," I said, my eyes fixed on her. "You betrayed the one place that gave you trust. And now, everyone can see exactly who you are." Her tears didn't move me this time. This wasn't the woman I'd built a life with. This was the woman who burned it down piece by piece while smiling at me across the dinner table. As I walked away, I felt dozens of eyes follow me. Not out of sympathy, but because they'd just witnessed the mask fall. And when a mask breaks, it can never be put back together. Karma doesn't rush. It doesn't chase. Just waits. Silent, patient, certain. In the days after that night, I didn't have to do a single thing. The truth had already done the work for me. Leora packed her bags in silence, the same house. She once moved through like a queen, now feeling too small for her to breathe in. She tried to talk a few times, apologies that didn't feel like apologies, excuses that sounded like empty echoes, but I didn't give her what she wanted most, a way back. The neighborhood changed overnight. The same people who once waved at her with warm smiles now barely made eye contact. Morel didn't need to spread stories. The truth had already traveled on its own. She tried to outsmart everyone in the one place where everyone sees everything. That's the thing about close-knit neighborhoods. Trust is currency. And once you burn it, no one will trade with you again.
Oh.
I watched her from the porch the morning she left. Her car was packed to the roof, her eyes swollen from nights spent trying to rewrite a story that had already ended. She looked at me one last time, and in that moment I saw it. The weight of being exposed. The quiet punishment of knowing she couldn't fix what she broke. Morel's husband moved out too. She didn't forgive him, and she didn't owe him a second chance. Admired that. Didn't speak much after that night. We didn't need to. Betrayal had connected us for a moment, but healing would be our own separate journeys. The funny thing is, peace doesn't come with fireworks. It comes in small moments. Sitting on the porch with a cup of coffee again. Watching kids ride their bikes without that tightness in my chest. Breathing without checking the clock. Trusting the silence again. Leora thought she was playing a clever game. She thought she could move through shadows without ever facing the light. But karma has a way of flipping the script, left with her lies. I stayed with my truth, and that was enough. People always think revenge needs to be loud, that it has to be this big, dramatic explosion. But the truth is, the most satisfying revenge doesn't roar. It whispers. It waits. And then it strikes with the quiet precision of truth. I didn't need to destroy her life. I just had to let the truth stand in the middle of everything she tried to build. And that was enough. After she left, the house felt different.
Oh.
Not empty. Lighter. The silence wasn't heavy anymore. It didn't carry secrets. It didn't echo with lies. It felt honest. I could walk through the rooms without feeling like something was hiding behind every closed door. I could finally breathe without wondering if the woman next to me was really mine or just a shadow pretending to be. I won't lie, betrayal leaves scars. There are nights I still hear the echo of her whispering someone else's name. Mornings where her laughter flashes through my memory like a flicker of light. But scars don't make you weak. They remind you that you survived. And more importantly, that you learned. What she and Morel's husband never understood is that lies are temporary armor. They shine for a while, but the truth always has a way of bleeding through the cracks. They played smart, yes. But they forgot one thing. People may forgive, but truth never forgets. I stand on my porch again now. Same neighborhood, same houses, same sunsets. But everything feels clearer, stronger. My story isn't just about betrayal. It's about how karma has a perfect sense of timing. She thought she'd humiliated me behind closed doors. Karma made sure the doors opened wide. To everyone listening right now, don't ever doubt your instincts. If something feels off, it probably is. And if someone plays smart, remember the truth is smarter. It doesn't rush. It just waits. If you've ever faced betrayal, if you've ever had your trust shattered, let me tell you this. Your silence, your patience, your truth, that's your loudest revenge.